Ours is one of 4 churches dedicated to St. George of England. Our church was consecrated in 1222, the year that St. George's Day was finally settled. This building would have replaced an earlier one, probably of wood. The earliest representation of our church is on the acres map of the Toddington estate, dated 1581. This photograph was taken about 1890, before changes to the north porch and the Wentworth Chapel window. It shows quite clearly the unique frieze. Many of the weathered carvings are unrecognisable, but there has been conservation and replacement of some. In 1818, Thomas Fisher drew the carvings as they were in his day, and his drawings were used as a guide for replacements. These were carved in 1991. The original figures were carved in the 16th century. The old masons may have got some of their inspiration while in the Sow and Pig's Ale House, which stood opposite the church on the other side of the main road. The present building is a Victorian replacement. Also shown in this old photo are the embattled parapets to the nave, which fell in a storm in 1976, causing terrible damage to north and south aisles. Today no sign is visible. In the Wentworth Chapel are 2 famous but dusty monuments. Pam Ward, our architect, had this to say.
Also in the Wentworth Chapel are the 2 wonderful tombs to Henrietta and Maria Wentworth, both 18th century if I remember rightly. They both really are in need of TLC, and we've had estimates of about £12,000 for each of them. That was some years ago, so maybe we're talking about £15,000 today, to do repairs, remove cramps, which are iron cramps which are rusting, and to clean some of the marble which has been badly affected by the dirt.
The south transept, or the Cheney Chapel, is the oldest part of the church. It contains some very interesting tombs. In the past it has suffered much damage from vandals and also damp. We asked Pam Ward about the missing hatchments.
The hatchments themselves were taken down when we realised just how wet the wall was, and they're stored at the moment in the Wentworth Chapel, but one of them particularly is in a very, very bad state, and both of them need careful conservation work by an expert. And then, once that work's done, they can be put back on the wall, and that would be a nice asset to this chapel.
Of the figures on the platform, the farthest, Anne, brought the Toddington estate into the Cheney family. Her son, Henry, in the middle, built the great manor house, and to his left his widow Jane, who left the estate to the Wentworths. In the corner, Thomas Pavey, who died in 1429. He rebuilt parts of the church and left it much as we see it today. Margaret, his wife, was the daughter of Sir Nigel Loring of Chalgrave, who was one of the first knights of the Garter. And Nicholas, father of Thomas, was called for service at Crecy. He died in 1362. These paintings on the south wall, and those on the north wall, are about all that remains to us from pre-Reformation days, when the whole church interior was probably covered in decoration and paintings of saints and biblical scenes, which were used as teaching aids. In neighbouring Chalgrave Church, there are murals which give us some idea of what we have lost. Of the angels in the roof, one holds a shield with the arms of Thomas and Margaret Pavey. It was they who put the angels here when they raised the roof to insert the clear story. The angels' wings were renewed in the 19th century. These carved heads are some of those to be found around the church. It will be interesting to know the story behind one or two of them. Apart from upkeep, the church's activities need organising. We asked our church warden, Frank Brown, some questions.
I understand that parochial church councils were formed at the beginning of this century sometime. Can you tell me what is the relationship between the rector, the church wardens and the parochial church council? What are their respective jobs or duties?
Whereas the incumbent is responsible for the cure of souls in the parish and has a responsibility for the church and to some extent for the contents, the church wardens significantly also are responsible to the bishop directly for the church and the contents and for the distribution of monies collected, where that changed at about 1919, I think it was, where parochial church councils came into being and took on some of that responsibility under our corporate body. So although the membership of the church council does change through lots of rules and regulations, the individuals may be different. The actual parochial church council is perpetual and has the responsibility with the church wardens and the incumbent to take care of the building, the fabrics and all of those sorts of things.
Now the Friends, how do they fit into this scheme of things?
The PCC was having to try and organise various committees, subcommittees like the Fate Committee, the Bazaar Committee and whatever. And often it was the same group of people who were involved, and we used to have something called a restoration committee. And again, it was the same group of people, and there was an intention to try and spread the load and also to be more inclusive of other members of the village. Because, of course, the church may have a pastoral and Christian role in the village for those who have a faith and wish to worship within the Church of England. But, of course, as a building, it has a significant role in the village in terms of the history to do with schools and lots of other things. And so there was an intention to try and include a greater number of people in the care of the building because it was becoming a burden for the congregation. And so other parishes have organised and set up subgroups called the Friends. And so we decided as a PCC we would like to try and do that. And therefore a constitution was drawn up for the Friends of St George of Toddington, which is an independent body who raise funds solely for the care and fabric and upkeep of the building, for the building itself, and it is essential that the money is only used for that. No money that is raised by the Friends can be used for the perpetuation of the worship in the building. That is quite clearly the responsibility of the PCC. By not having its own restoration committee or fundraising body anymore, is now somewhat dependent upon the Friends to actually raise the money.
Are the Friends your only source of revenue for repairs and restoration, or do you have other funds you can call upon?
We do get money given to us for restoration purposes that we do keep in separate accounts, and of course can supplement whatever the Friends are able to offer to us to enable us to carry out the repair work. So we do have sources of income, but we don't actively fundraise for them as much as we used to because we now have the Friends.
Thank you.
Some of the concerts that the local music society organise are held in the church, and they invite many well-known groups of musicians to play. This is a performance by the canticle choir. And this is the Beverley String Quartet. The Toddington Bell Ringers are a thriving group, attracting all age groups. A peal of 8 bells are about the best in the county. The oldest bell, the Sanctus, was cast in 1665. Most of the others were recast in 1792. The bell ringers are especially in demand for weddings. The reredos and the east window were designed by Christopher Webb, and these splendid kneelers were designed and worked in the parish and installed in 1993. The door leads to the priest's vestry, which is the ground floor room of a unique three-storey building. The first floor houses the remains of a local museum. And the top floor still has the rifle racks of an armoury for the local volunteers at the time of the Napoleonic War. The spiral staircase divides to allow access from both inside and outside the church. Originally, this 14th century building was housing for chantry priests. The modern font stands symbolically between the three entrances to the church. The war memorial is in two parts. The lower portion commemorates the dead of World War II, while the upper commemorates those who died in World War I. It was provided by the local Girl Guides and carved in the village. Every year on Armistice Day, a procession leaves the church for an interdenominational service at the village cenotaph. Representatives of local organisations lay wreaths. A similar service was held in the summer of '94 to remember VE Day.
Very good it is to see so many with us to share in the thanksgiving for victory in Europe. And also we give thanks that the weather is very much as it was 50 years ago to the day, as some of us will be able to remember.
The church is used as a base for the activities of the children's summer holiday week. They bring packed lunches, and at midday they have a picnic in the churchyard. Here, getting to know each other, are the youngest group catered for by the church. The next age group are the young Georgians. At Easter, there are eggs to be found hidden in secret places in the churchyard. The oldest group are the Georgians, a church youth club. Each year at Easter they set off on a pilgrimage to St. Albans, where they meet other youth groups to worship in the extended family of churches which make up the Diocese of St. Albans. The church fete, held on the village green each summer, when local organisations join in to make a great day. The Wilkinson Hall, thanks to the generosity of the late John Wilkinson, is a great asset to the church and the community. Here it is used for the Christmas bazaar. Christmas time and carols on the green. Frosting on trees is one of the delights of winter, but the same frost does enormous damage to the church. Pam Ward again.
The south porch is an item for which we have grant, and we also have grant to carry out a survey of it, to be able to do a detailed drawing and record it now before it decays any further. It's been treated over the years with a shelter coat which has given protection, and you can see above the doorway there's a slightly different colour, and that's where the shelter coat is a bit more protected from the weather and it hasn't been washed away. And the idea is with these repairs to point the gaps in the pointing that are missing, lightly descale it to take off the bits of stone that are liable to fall, and then to apply lime water to the walls, which is water which soaks into the stonework and puts some lime back into the goodness of the stonework. And when we've done that, we'll put a lime shelter coat on the outside to give it a bit of protection.
This restoration work costs money. So in the summer, many parishioners open their gardens to the public to raise money for church restoration. Gardens come in all sizes, small gardens, medium gardens and really large gardens. The different ways that people use and organise their gardens is always interesting to the many visitors who come from miles around Toddington for this popular annual event. The state of the pillars seems to suggest neglect, so Brian Beadle, chairman of the Friends, asked our architect about them.
The pillars are part of the progress we can now see because of all the work that's been done in recent years. What's happened is that it was so damp underneath with the flood we had from the heating system and with the drainage that was blocked up solid. Now the drainage has been cleared and the pillars are beginning to dry out, but when it was damp outside and the ground level was too high, the damp rises up the column. Normally about 5 feet is as high as it goes, and as it dries, the stone is flaking a bit. It's not helped because there have been repairs done in places in a hard mortar, and also the lime wash, the damp comes from behind and even pushes the lime wash off, and it's pushing a thin layer of the stone off in places. It's difficult to know what to do, and the big thing is it really does need quite some time to dry before we do anything positive. I think once it's dry, one could lime wash again, but not at this stage. It looks unsightly, but it's doing well. It's drying out.
Well, now we're at the southwest corner of the church, where we can see we've got the drains and the buttresses which are flaking, and perhaps you'd like to give us a few words on this one, Pam.
The drains first, starting at the ground. The Victorians were very keen on building brick perimeter gutters, and this was supposed to dry the churches, but unfortunately they very often did them at too high a level, which is the case here because this is above the floor level of the church. And now, as time has passed by, the mortar between the joints of the bricks has all eroded away, and the moisture that's getting underneath the gutters is trapped and can't breathe. And the easy way out is into the church, which is why the church is damp at low level and why the dampness is going up some of the columns. Most of the church we've now worked our way round, but this little bit we haven't yet worked on. And the other thing is the stone on this corner. You can see that a lot of the repairs have been done, and there are two different sorts of stones. The whiter, greyer stone, which is Toddington stone, and this is repairs. The stones in the original church would have been much bigger than this. And then the greeny browner stone is a Mansfield stone. And when it was new, it was white. It matched very well with the Toddington stone. But as it's weathered, you can see it's taken up a quite different colour. The other problem with the Mansfield stone is that it laminates, and there's a little bit on the side of the buttress where you can see it, vertical shaling is coming off. It also laminates horizontally, and I think that this was the problem that caused the nave parapets to fall. These are the south aisle buttresses, which were built in Mansfield stone, probably rebuilt from the original, and you can see the new stone, which is a much lighter colour, although that has now been in somewhere between 8 and 10 years. It takes quite a time to pick up the dark colour. The right-hand buttress was in a very, very bad state. The stone was badly decayed, the core, the inside of the buttress was in a bad state, and with both the buttresses inside the church, unfortunately, you can see the damage which it had caused, and the stone is, and the staining on the inside. The problem with the left-hand buttress had been largely caused by a blocked rainwater pipe, and you can see that at the side of the buttress now there is a new lead chute. So if the downpipe does get blocked, which it does happen from time to time because there are so many trees and leaves around, at least the water is being blown clear of the buttress. And we've done this generally around the church so that it avoids damage to the walls. The stones you can see on the side of the south transept here were enormous stones. The walls in this part of the church are about 3 feet thick. And on the chancel the stones are a little squarer and not quite as big. Built a bit later. For quite a long time the Toddington quarry was closed and one couldn't get Toddington stone, and this is why so many repairs have been carried out with brickwork or tiles, and in some places rendering has been put on, as you can see on the buttresses on the end of the south transept. This south transept window, the Cheney Chapel, it was renewed about 10 years ago using Toddington stone. Before that it had all been rendered, and the render was falling off everywhere because the rendering was too hard. There's too much cement in it for the window, and the window behind, or the stonework behind, had just decayed. While we were doing the work, we removed rendering and repointed the wall either side of the window. And interestingly, the left-hand side, as we tried to remove the rendering, a lot of the outer face of the wall collapsed, and you could actually stand within the thickness of the wall. The inside of the wall was quite all right, but the outside collapsed, and that had to be completely rebuilt, where the right-hand side is the original, 200 or 300 years old at least, but obviously not the very original, because that would have been in Toddington stone. The windows are protected, which unfortunately gives a bad reflective appearance. This was because in 1992, unfortunately, vandals broke most of the windows at Toddington Church. They threw a stone through this window because it was too high off the ground for them to climb up, whereas on most of the other windows they climbed up and did an amazing amount of damage. The insurance claim was £36,000, and that's why protection has been put onto the stained glass windows. The tower is a massive tower and one of the oldest parts of the church, with very, very thick walls. Originally it would all have been of Toddington stone, and you can see some of the large areas of stone, and as the stone has decayed, repairs over many centuries have been carried out with cobbles and tiles and bricks, and you can see the corner nearest us, which is where the rainwater pipe is. Again, there's been lots of trouble in the past, and that corner has been virtually rebuilt with brickwork. It's also the corner which takes the prevailing weather, which I've no doubt doesn't help it. The windows are in a very bad state now. Some repairs were carried out when the parapets were rebuilt about 15 years ago, and you can see on the south side the tracery was renewed, but the whole of the windows, which when you get close to them it's a big, big stone, or several big stones, and they really do now need attention. It's interesting each winter when you look at the roofs after the winter, and you just see how much stone falls with the frost onto the roofs around.
A church architect needs a head for heights. Every inch of the fabric, both inside and out, has to be inspected. The Church of St. George of England is an integral part of the community, one of its greatest assets, and a living record and tribute to our forebears. Let us hand it on to future generations, well cared for, and with the trust that they will use and cherish this noble building.